Let me just make a couple comments before we please have everyone's attention. As I mentioned earlier on, for those of you who weren't here in the room, the rules normally for this committee are 3 and 3 individuals for proponents, 3 individuals for opponents, and a total of 9 minutes. So there's 3 minutes per individuals. After that, we're going to take only, name only, support and or oppose. I did make an exception for special order number 1, but we will be going with the 3 and 3. Senator Leno, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I will be as respectful of your long day and agenda as I possibly can. First of all, I will accept the recommendation of the committee and the Attorney General to define the word smoking as an author's amendment and also including e-cigarettes within the Licensing Act. So this bill very simply will include electronic cigarettes within California's smoke-free laws and the Stop Tobacco Access to Kids Enforcement Act, otherwise known as STAKE. And just to get our definitions clear from the start, according to the FDA, e-cigarettes are battery-operated products designed to deliver nicotine, flavor, and other chemicals to the user. The nicotine contained in e-cigarettes is derived from tobacco and is highly addictive. So that's what we're talking about here. And this is a very fast-growing industry. It's now about $2.5 billion annually, nearly doubling every year. And amazingly, it is unregulated. And why we're here is that this is a really serious potential health crisis for California. The fastest growing segment of e-cigarette users is middle and high school students. Middle and high school students who have never smoked a traditional cigarette are now using e-cigarettes, despite the fact that our former colleague, Senator Ellen Corbett, was successful in putting into statute a ban on sales to minors. But the industry markets their products in flavors such as gummy bears, Mountain Dew, bubble gum. Is it any surprise this is in the hands of children? And these products deliver nicotine. We don't even know what's in the liquids that they are vaporizing because there's no requirement for any of us to know what's in them. But even in products that claim they are nicotine-free, they have been tested by some of the professionals you'll be hearing from, and they have found nicotine. We are at risk of losing 25 years' effort and a $2 billion investment in keeping a next generation from becoming addicted to the killing drug of nicotine. So this is big business, and Wells Fargo has estimated that within 10 years, 75% of this market will be controlled and owned by the big 3 tobacco companies. So the Smoke-Free Act will prohibit the use, and it doesn't ban e-cigarettes, so anyone who suggests we're trying to ban them is just incorrect. It will just merely limit where they can be used. And as with traditional cigarettes, they would be banned from schools and restaurants and daycare centers, public transportation. And why are we doing that? Because the emissions from these e-cigarettes, though the common parlance is just vapor, and that's where the term vaporizing comes from, given the indication that it's just water particles. In fact, it is aerosol. And aerosol, different from vapor, is made up of particles, and they are chemicals. The California Department of Public Health has identified minimally 10 carcinogenic elements in these particles in the vapor, in the aerosol that is emitted. So the secondhand emission is just as dangerous as traditional smoke. And the reason we want to include it in the STAKE Act, which again is the Stop Tobacco Access to Kids Enforcement Act, is that we know that this is in the hands of children, and we want to increase enforcement and oversight provisions of the act, so which do not currently apply to e-cigarettes. So you're going to hear from different resources, including researchers from the University of California, San Francisco, We have information from not only the California Department of Public Health, which has declared these devices to be dangerous and unsafe, and they are currently in the midst of an educational campaign. You may have seen some of the television commercials that are out right now. The Federal Drug Administration already defines these products as tobacco products. The federal definition for tobacco products is the term tobacco product means any product made or derived from tobacco that is intended for human consumption, including any component, part, or accessory of a tobacco product. That which is vaporized is nicotine, which comes from tobacco. So it's already recognized as, under federal definition, a tobacco product. We want to put it into statute here. And in addition to the Department of Public Health, Federal Food and Drug Administration, also the World Health Organization, and then you're going to hear from all the health advocacy groups, the Lung Association, the Heart Association, the Cancer Society, all those who are in the business of protecting public health will be speaking in support. But you don't have to just take it from me and from all these health advocacy groups that what I'm saying is so. I'm going to use some of the information that the e-cigarette industry itself has put out, and you should have all of these 4 pieces distributed to you. And I just want to walk you through them one by one. So the first one I'm looking at is a warning label on Mark 10 e-vapor. Mark 10 e-vapor is one of the larger players in the market, and if you look at their advertisement, at the bottom they have this warning. This product is not intended for use by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, or persons with or at risk of heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, or taking medicine for depression or asthma. Nicotine is addictive and habit-forming, and it is very toxic by inhalation. Nicotine can increase your heart rate, blood pressure, and causes dizziness, nausea, and stomach pain. Inhalation of this product may aggravate existing respiratory conditions. That's from the industry itself. Another piece we took right off their website, R.J. Reynolds Vapor. They say their product, their definition, is innovative digital tobacco product technology. Reading from their own information, they do not burn tobacco, but rather heat liquid containing nicotine derived from tobacco. Views, which is their product, is a tobacco product under federal law. This is from the industry itself. Going back to Mark 10, their own information, reading from it, ingredients, tobacco-derived nicotine, and then they have their own warning label. This product is not a smoking cessation product and has not been tested as such. California Proposition 65 warning. This product, Mark 10, an e-cigarette. This product contains nicotine, a chemical known to the state of California to cause birth defects or other reproductive harm. This is all coming from the industry. And I'll just close with what I think is a rather fascinating story, because when the opposition does come up, and of course they should be afforded their time, they're going to argue that they are not a tobacco product, that you should oppose this bill because it's not a tobacco product, their own industry's disclosures notwithstanding, that they are a cessation device, though they have never been tested or approved as a cessation device by the FDA or anybody else. It's just their opinion. But in 2009, NJOY, which is again one of the larger players in the e-cigarette market, at a time when Congress had not authorized the FDA to regulate tobacco products, all the FDA could regulate was cessation devices. So NJOY sued the Food and Drug Administration, claiming they were not a cessation device, they were a tobacco product. And they won. They won in court. And in fact, the judge agreed and said in his own comments that, in fact, yes, they are a tobacco product and they are not a cessation device. So now that it's more convenient for the industry to say they are a cessation device, they want to walk back from their own lawsuit, which they won, which determined that they were a tobacco product. But if they ever are, and it's their right to apply to the FDA to be tested and approved as a cessation device, if and when that should ever happen, this bill will not impact them because this bill does not regulate cessation devices. So with that, I'd like to introduce our sponsors and supporters. We have Dr. Philip Gardner, who is the program officer for the Tobacco-Related Disease Research Program at the University of California Office of the President, followed by Dr. Kathy McDonald with the California Society of Addiction Medicine, and Dr. Stanton Glantz, Director for the Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education at the University of California, San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please state your name. Proceed.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Phil Gardner. I'm with, as mentioned, the University of California Office of the President. I should say, also want to thank Senator Leno and the American Cancer Society for having me here today. As a UC employee, I'm not going to speak for or against the bill. What I'm going to try and do is actually bring some science to bear on the question. I oversee the e-cigarette portfolio for the Tobacco-Related Disease Research Program. We fund studies. Increasingly, our studies are looking at electronic cigarettes, so there is a growing amount of research. I also served on the committee that put together the UC's recent no smoking and no cigarette policy, and we did a background piece on electronic cigarettes. I'm going to read some of that to you. I think it will be helpful in your determination. Essentially, electronic cigarettes and the aerosol that is emitted from them is a new source of pollution and toxins that is being emitted into the environment. E-cigarettes emit volatile organic compounds like benzene and toluene, heavy metals like nickel and arsenic, tobacco-specific carcinogens, and carbon compounds like formaldehyde and acrolein. While these concentrations of these chemicals are lower than in tobacco smoke and vary across brands, these vapors are a new source of ultrafine and fine particulate in the environment, and the public can be exposed to them. Research shows that secondhand exposure does occur, with some studies actually showing that e-cigarette emissions can contain nicotine levels comparable to that of secondhand tobacco smoke. Secondhand exposure to nicotine is potentially particularly problematic for children, for pregnant women, and persons with cardiac conditions. This is especially important at this time as the e-cigarette industry is transforming as we speak, going from what we have initially talked about as cigalites that look like cigarettes to much larger tank systems that can contain more liquid and therefore more nicotine. They can be heated higher and then put out more toxins. We have some studies that show that some of the larger new tank systems will put out formaldehyde at levels comparable to that of tobacco cigarette. The question has always been raised, well, does these things harm you? I think the take-home message is two things. One, we do not know the long-term health effects of these, and there's a period there. This is a brand new phenomena. What we do know at the more immediate level, propylene glycol, which is an FDA-approved humectant that allows the vapor, the fog you see, we know that it can retard lung function if used consistently. We have studies in terms of that. We also know that e-cigarettes can increase respiratory resistance. It can also cause eye and respiratory irritation. Even though, and I think this is the key point here, even though these products, propylene glycol and glycerin, are FDA approved, they are not approved for inhalation. They're approved for ingestion. And a whole different set of chemical reactions take place when you heat, burn, and or aerosolize a product. I'm going to cut to the chase and leave time for my colleagues to speak about this. There needs to be a much more in-depth discussion about this at a scientific level. And as Senator Leonard pointed out, I don't want to ban electronic cigarettes. I wish they work, but what I'm clear on is that they do produce toxic matter into the environment, and that should be the starting point of how we deal with it. Lastly, e-cigarettes and kids. The recent CDC report in 2014 in November showed that It had tripled between 2011 and 2014. This is tripled to up to 5% of kids using it. What's even more remarkable, the next month in November of 2014, this is just a few months ago, Monitoring the Future data came out where the majority of kids, there are more kids smoking e-cigarettes than smoking regular cigarettes. Not to put too sharp of a point on this, when they don't even use the terms e-cigarettes. We don't even, our tools are not even functional in their environment. Vaping pens, breathalyzers, vaporizers, all sorts of things. It's similar to asking a kid, does he smoke? But of course, when he talks about smoking, he's not thinking about the Swisher Sweet or the Black and Mild cigar. He's thinking about a cigarette, so he says he doesn't smoke. So we even have to get our terminology in order. Lastly, youth exposed to nicotine is clearly a problem. It can alter brain development at a young age. That's why most people get addicted when you're young. It takes over certain executive function. And lastly, e-cigarettes are an unregulated product. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has not approved these products for treatment of nicotine dependence, nor are they currently subject to safe manufacturing quality standards. The FDA continues to warn people about them. We do not know the long-term health effects of e-cigarette use, and although the industry marketing of the product implies that these products are harmless, the aerosol that e-cigarettes emit is not pure water vapor. So based on that, I'm reading the concluding paragraphs of the UC policy. Based on the little science that is available, and while using the precautionary principle and not wanting to undermine the great strides in smoking denormalization that has taken place, UC is regulating electronic cigarettes like regular tobacco cigarettes, and I've gone through the rationale for that. I'll be happy to take any questions, and at this time I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you. We have
Dr.
2 minutes and
McDonald.
44 seconds left for the remainder of the, please proceed. I told everybody very clearly, 9 minutes total.